even if you brush in a rush. Grit Fluoride Toothpaste starts instant action against tooth decay. Grit, B-R-I-S-K, Grit.
This is Fannie Luce Popupski, better known as Up, speaking with you from WKBCU PS Radio Theater. I'm back in my special Timeless Cocoon Center, where people share ideas, books, and friendly conversation. I've been traveling to a variety of small American towns. I want to better understand why some small towns die, becoming ghost towns, and others thrive. The formula, if there truly is one, varies from town to town. For some, it's historic, artistic, generational, or commercial. For others, it's all of the above. Sadly, some towns put individual self-interest first, and sadly, these are the towns which disappear. The spirit of American pride and its gift of inclusiveness, history, diversity, artistic freedom, and neighborly concern all seem to be at the heart of a town's survival. Here's my perspective of what I've learned during my travels of the past several years to small-town America. Some small towns thrive, others disappear. Art galleries, museums, artisan boutiques, flea markets, parks, eateries, music, all draw people from far and wide. In a time long gone, eateries, a major gathering center, young, old, singles, couples, families, some on their first date, professionals for an important project. Friends, new and long time, catching up, countless loyal, lifelong patrons of multiple generations, sadly, now feel a time crunch, not theirs, but the eatery's newer owners, loyal, lifelong patrons now choosing to eat elsewhere, regaining the calm of friendliness they once knew. One eatery's loss is another's gain. A small-town American loss, memories, nostalgia, the familiar lost, found again somewhere new. What was lost, hanging heavily, sadly, in the air. Eateries where people feel they can gather, connect away from life's daily rush, part of a town's survival, along with basic services and amenities. Oak Hill, Florida may be hidden off the common track, but it's a prime example of a town's survival and growth due to the dedication of its community leaders in the midst of life's ever-changing landscape. Oak Hill is one of America's forgotten treasures, filled with memories of time-honored tradition. The community has lost the industries of fishing, orange groves, and government presence at the Kennedy Space Center, but Oak Hill's goals for the growth of its infrastructure include involvement with conservation, often partnering with local, county, state, and federal programs. The students at Oak Hill's Burns Science and Technology Charter School embrace STEM and STEAM program goals, embracing the arts as well as science and technology. The students create products shared with their community and beyond. The Canaveral National Park, an historic site, plays an important part in the school's community involvement. The community hills, known as the Middens, were created from the daily residue of the Timucuan Indians, the first people to settle Oak Hill. The community has several parks, which welcome locals as well as overnight guests. Oak Hill may be hidden on Florida's East Coast Indian River, but it continues to thrive. I was guided by Oak Hill's Dana Greatrex, a fifth-generation Oak Hill community leader, historian, author, journalist, and educator. She's an example of someone who believes that we have the power to allow important things to remain the same in our small towns, especially the town's bold spirit. Dana shares the Oak Hill experience.
Growing up in a grocery store in a very small town was really a wonderful experience for me. My mom said that I came home from the hospital to the grocery cart, and I find myself behind the counter being the candy girl or dipping ice cream for my friends at a very young age. But I had a lot of time to spend, so I've often went next door to my cousin's garage, and while his parents were working in the garage, my parents were working in the grocery store, and we played in the valley, which was a big area of land behind the store. Looking back on it, it seemed like everything important in my life was on that street. We went up to the VIA hall, and there were all kinds of things that we were able to do there. And throughout my life, that building seemed to reflect the place where people could come for family reunions or Sunday afternoon Bible studies or picnics, or even had elections in that building. But most of all, that building came to mean something very special to me because our school, our elementary school, closed, and they were going to build a new one, and so I had to go to school in that building. And across the street from that building was the post office. And then the library came to that top of the hill, group of buildings that seemed to be part of my entire growing up. Down the street from the post office was my great aunt's house and my great uncle's house, and then down that side road was the new school. And it seemed like walking up and down that hill from our grocery store to the various places around that top of the hill area seemed to be where all my friends were, where I went after school to play on the playground or climb some trees. And as I look back on that little girl who used to sit on her daddy's warehouse porch steps and sell seashells to people walking by, or the times when we would have a circus inside that old building, or the times when later in life I opened a serendipity ice cream shop just so people could gather and have ice cream together with their families, or get a sub sandwich every now and then. There were many times in my life when I didn't want to live in Oak Hill because it was 12 miles from New Smyrna. And so when I got in high school in New Smyrna, it seemed like such a difficult thing to have to get my parents to take me to practices or events, and I hated living in Oak Hill. But then what did I do after college? I came back to live in Oak Hill and teach in New Smyrna, the very school where I had graduated from. Then I got married and came back to Oak Hill. So since 1947, and all my childhood memories of things that happened in our community, it was very important to me to raise my children in this town. People cared about each other. My grandparents' store burned down, and everyone in the community came to his aid and helped and took in the children. And so I wanted that same kind of close spirit and care for each other for my own boys. One of the most important things about living in Oak Hill, this small fishing town, as a child, was the fact that so many adults interacted with the children, and they cared about you. They looked out after you, and it was important to me that no matter what their age, that they cared about what I was doing. And we would have baseball games down in the schoolyard after school, and we would have volleyball games at the park, and older adults would come around and just look out after us and participate in what we were doing. And it just seemed like a big family, and that no matter what was going on, it was a safe place where I always felt loved by the people who lived around me. I would often walk up the hill from our grocery store and visit my grandmother on Campton Street. One afternoon, as she was teaching me how to can peaches, I began asking some questions about the days when she and my grandpa were running the grocery store. She said to me, "Why don't we just walk backwards in my mind to the original grocery store days?" I learned that they moved up to Oak Hill from Titusville shortly after my father was born in order to run the grocery store for her brother Leonard. He was the first man to be drafted in Volusia County for World War I. He wanted to leave his grocery store business to his sister and her husband. On that day, I learned that my dad lived above the grocery store, and that over time my dad would be joined by 4 sisters and a brother. They were all born upstairs. The grandmother kept the books, helped my grandfather in the grocery store, and she raised a family of 6 at the top of the hill. On Labor Day in 1935, my family closed the business for the holidays and went to the beach in New Smyrna. On the way back home, they saw the sky was filled with black smoke. And once they arrived to the top of the hill, the grocery store was on fire, and their upstairs living quarters were already burned. She looked at me with a tear rolling down her cheek as she remembered that feeling of hopelessness the day. "We lost everything," she said. The rest of her story changed my life. Her voice became strong and a smile came over her face as she began to tell me how the community of Oak Hill came to them for help. One friend, one family at a time. Each offered help, support, and of course their prayers. This tragedy had revealed the best in most of the people in Oak Hill. The business was temporarily set up in the VIA hall across the street. Temporary housing was provided, clothing for the children, and all the things that they needed came one miracle at a time, filled with love from the members of the community. How could I not spend my life loving this community and giving back for all the kindness they had shown to my family in times of tragedy? When I retired from teaching in Volusia County, I learned that the local elementary school was closed due to budget cuts and was scheduled to be torn down. My mind flashed back to 1960 when I was in the 7th grade. My classroom was going to be housed in the VIA hall. Yeah, the same building where my grandfather temporarily opened the store until he had built a new one in 1935. But once again, the local school was the subject of concern. So a community task force was formed to address ways to keep the local school open. I was destined to get involved, and after much prayer and miracles of divine intervention, the school was saved from destruction. Selfless volunteers worked together in a spirit of unity for a year to open the public charter school in 2011. This A-rated charter school thrives today with 1,100 students, grades K through 12. How could I not spend my life loving this community and giving back for all the kindness they had shown to my family?
Thank you for visiting today and hearing Dana's story about her beloved Oak Hill, Florida. Take time to visit Oak Hill. Be sure to have lunch at the town's well-known Goodrich Seafood Restaurant, where time seems to stand still as families and neighbors share a meal and stories within the rush of everyday life. This is Fannie Luce Prupupski, better known as Ups, signing off for WKBCUPS Radio Theater.
Even if you brush in a rush, Grit Fluoride Toothpaste starts instant action against tooth decay. Grit, B-R-I-S-K, Grit.